Every so often, a piece of celebrity news shows up looking like the lightest kind of filler content, and then, the moment you actually pause on it, turns out to be quietly carrying something much heavier. This is one of those cases. On paper, Prince Harry has been visiting relatives on his mother's side more often. Sounds barely worth a mention. The kind of detail that would normally get scrolled past without a second thought. But sit with it a little longer, and it starts to look like a small update, carrying a surprising amount of emotional weight. So tonight, on Royal Truth Desk, we're skipping past the standard scene again at Althorp caption, and actually digging into what this relationship might genuinely mean, why it could matter more than most coverage gives it credit for, and because apparently we can never resist, we're circling back once more to that heir and spare childhood dynamic that's quietly shaped so much of this entire family saga. Stay with us, because there's real substance buried in here, tucked beneath what looks from a distance like nothing more than a routine family outing. And if you're the type who prefers royal commentary that actually pauses to think, instead of racing past the surface, go ahead and hit subscribe now, because that's exactly what tonight's episode is about.
He turned 40 yesterday. William and Kate and King Charles celebrated the milestone birthday with social media posts. Some are calling these gestures as an olive branch. So, is it time to welcome Prince Harry and Meghan back home and heal the reported family rift? What do you two make of this story? Carol, let's start with you.
Okay.
No.
Go on. Everything seems to be upsetting you.
No, this doesn't upset me.
Okay, good.
I think it's, I think the family had no choice but to acknowledge it was Harry's birthday. The family tradition always has acknowledged landmark birthdays. Do I think it's a meaningful peace offering for reconciliation? No, I don't.
I would hope that's wrong, and I hope that this is the beginnings of a peace process and olive branch, and the King's not getting any younger. He's not in great health. We hope he is recovering. And, the Princess of Wales is also recovering from a cancer. And when people get older, he's 40 years old, Harry, his wife's, 42, 43, they start thinking about things differently. You get more perspective. You've got 5 cousins who don't know each other.
But that's not the royal family's fault. That's Harry's fault.
You're putting it all on Harry. Remember, all of this media.
Sorry.
Carol, if I can land, please, for a second. Look, we don't know what the precise ins and outs. Clearly, Harry has been leaking, but the other side has leaked as well, industrially. We know this from correspondence.
I don't know how you can say this with
they
a straight
have.
face, Henry.
The Buckingham Palace has a massive media machine. Clarence House has a massive media machine. They don't need to.
They could have said so much about Harry and Meghan.
They've got a royal press pack which does their bidding.
They could have said so many damaging things about Meghan and Harry.
They have.
They have not. You don't know that. You don't know what the leaking machine is. You've got no idea.
Well, do you have any better idea than me?
No, but you're assuming.
Do you have any better idea than me?
You're assuming the royal family.
But you've been assuming too, and you've gone to war against them.
Did the royal family sit down with Oprah Winfrey and call Harry and Meghan racist? No, they didn't.
No. Harry and Meghan didn't call anybody racist.
I'm afraid that's exactly what
they implied that something was asked with possibly malign intent. That's what they said.
Are you really of this belief that just because they're family, it should all be made together? Because, families can do terrible things.
Of course they can.
And it doesn't mean just because they are blood related that all rifts should be healed. Because sometimes, you're saying Kate has cancer. This is the same Kate that Harry trashed and betrayed. A girl who was like
trashed and betrayed? How? What are you talking about?
In the book, what are you talking about? She trashed her in the book,
I'll tell you what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the fact that Merva is waiting to speak to us from Sheffield. Merva, welcome to the show. Do you think it's time?
Hello.
Good morning. Do you think it's time that the royal family sort of put this rift together? Do you see this as a bit of an olive branch, this social media post?
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to see them reconciliate?
If it's going to happen, but I think there's agenda to it. Harry and Meghan are fine. Mm-hmm. They're happy. They've got their children. They're living. The British media and the royal family don't like that, especially somebody like Miss Malone there.
How do you know that, Happy?
On her.
How do you know that, Happy?
How do you know they're not?
How do you
Mr.
know they are? You just said they are.
And how do you know they're not?
I didn't say they weren't. You said they were.
Hang on, let Merva make her point.
I'd like to. That's it. Tell her to be quiet for once.
Fine.
The royal family. It's never mind Harry and Meghan trashing the royal family. Look what the royal family's done to Harry and Meghan. But you don't say anything.
What have they done?
Right. Now, my darling.
What have they done?
King, listen to me.
Let her make her point then,
Quiet for a
Carol.
minute.
You can
Thank
speak up.
Carol, be quiet.
Okay, Merva, hang on, both of you.
Can I
I'm in
just say
charge of
something?
this conversation.
I'm not going to be told to be quiet.
Okay, all right.
Just not.
All right.
Anyway,
If you just
listen.
let Merva make her point, and
Thank
Carol, I
you.
promise you can come back and make your point. Merva.
Thank you. Right. The royal family, especially Prince William, we've all found out it's him who's doing all the leaks. This is an agenda because they've had such bad backlash on that stupid little video thing they did last week or the week before. So they're trying to make themselves look better.
All right, Merva.
We're not stupid.
Thank you.
Can I
Thank
ask
you.
Merva a question?
Thank you, Merva. We've heard from you. You've made a lot of points. I think it's fair to let Carol.
Let me ask
come
Merva the
back.
question. Where's your proof that Wills has been doing all this leaking? Where is it? What do you know?
Oh, darling, we know.
Darling,
We're not
we
stupid
know.
now.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you don't know,
We're
in
not
fact.
stupid.
So I just asked you,
We're
what's your
not
proof?
stupid.
Where's your proof?
Carol, go back on GB News.
Where's
like
your
the rest
proof?
of you.
All right. Okay. I don't think we're getting anywhere
Just
there.
insulting. She's got no proof.
Merva, thank you for your call.
That? Have you ever heard the King say that? Have you ever heard
Have I heard
Camilla
him
that
say
they've been
what?
treated badly by him?
By
Have you
him?
heard them speak out like Harry has spoken out? Never. They've never done it.
But they don't need to because they have people willing to do their bidding in the press.
What
That's
do you think
why.
Harry does? Harry's briefing all the time from America. Every conversation. So when he has a private conversation with his father, how do you think that gets out into the press?
Well, it's either him or people
No.
on his father's
No.
side.
All right.
You don't know which one.
It really is.
Let's hear from Caroline in Nottinghamshire. Caroline, welcome to the show. What would you like to say?
I'd like to say you should get rid of all the royal family. I don't think it's worth them being here, to be honest.
But what will we talk about, Caroline, if they're gone?
It's a point.
To get rid of them.
Well,
Because we don't need them.
Well, you say you don't need them. I mean, look, we've had this debate on this show, on Jeremy's show, on plenty of shows, whether we need or don't need the royal family. And that's perhaps a chat for another day. But wouldn't you like to see this rift sort of be healed and then we can all stop talking about it?
Well, yeah, get rid of the rift and then get rid of them all.
Right. OK, bring them back together and then get rid of them. Caroline, I see where you're going with that. We're not going to persuade you otherwise. Margaret has got in touch from Northamptonshire. Margaret, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. What would you like to say?
Well, I would like to say that, yes, I do believe that they should reunite, in happiness, really. But what really annoys me, and it goes on like all the time, is that whatever channel you watch, they drag Meghan and Harry into it. Meghan and Harry does not ask to be spoke about, for a start. And also...
Some people, Margaret, would argue that they sometimes will bring that attention to themselves. I mean, I don't know what they could do to take that attention away, but what do you say to those critics?
But it still doesn't have to be spoke about.
Right.
Really, it doesn't. And at the end of the day, rifts happens in every family, or most families anyway. But unless you know the root cause of it, you can cut the head of a weed every week and it will still grow back unless you deal with the root cause of it. And I don't think that nobody knows the root cause why Harry did what he did, really. And I don't think that unless the whole family, royal family, talks together and everybody hears everybody's point of view calmly and collectively and, move on from there.
Margaret, thank you. Let's hear from Sheena in East Sussex. Sheena, welcome to the show. What would you like to say?
I'd just like to say that the British media just are too involved in the royal family, and it's just a never-ending cycle of stories after stories after stories. We don't actually know what's factual. We don't know,
Carol,
you know.
disagree with that?
Well, of course I disagree with that. I mean, the idea that the British media are making stuff up is farcical. It just doesn't happen. And if you think that Harry and Meghan don't want to be in the papers, why do they keep on talking to the media and to media outlets?
Yeah, but isn't William and Kate's comms team doing the same?
You know what?
Constantly doing the same. This battle needs to stop.
Well, I mean, I think, Sheena, you're right, and I don't agree with it.
From the British media is insane. And I've got to say, Carol, that also in the past you've written horrible stories about Diana, horrible stories about William and Kate before Meghan came on the scene.
When you say horrible...
It's what you've done. You've written horrible articles after articles about the royal family.
Because I'm a columnist. I'm employed for an opinion, and that's what I do. I give my opinion, whether you...
And you're doing the same now.
So you think it's horrible?
I mean, you're doing it to Diana.
What was I doing to Diana?
And then after Diana, you wrote horrible articles about her.
Yeah.
And then after Diana, you wrote horrible stories about William and Kate.
Yeah.
And now you've stopped on William and Kate, and now you're on Harry and Meghan.
Yeah, that's just what I do. I'm just a cruel, awful person.
Sheena, thank you.
Let's begin with the actual verifiable event that set off this whole conversation. Harry's visits to Althorp, the Spencer family's ancestral estate where Diana herself spent her childhood. On its face, this is about as low stakes as royal coverage gets. An adult man returning to the place his late mother grew up, spending time with relatives from her side of the family. If literally anyone else in the world did this, it wouldn't be treated as remotely newsworthy. But because this is Harry, and because of everything that's transpired since 2020, even the quietest family gathering gets picked apart for hidden meaning. Sometimes that instinct is completely overblown, but other times, once you actually look past the headline, there's something genuinely worth unpacking. And this looks like it might be one of those instances. Because here's the part that tends to get left out of most coverage. The Spencer side of the family represents Harry's most direct surviving connection to the mother he lost at only 12 years old, sustained through people who actually knew her as a real person, not through official documentaries, sanctioned biographies, or the version of her story that's been shaped and reshaped by palace messaging for decades. The Spencers aren't part of the working royal family. They're Diana's actual blood relations, the people who knew her long before she became the people's princess, back when she was simply a daughter, a sister, a niece. Keeping that relationship alive isn't really a strategic or political maneuver at all. It's about preserving access to a version of his mother that exists completely outside the palace's official narrative. Outside the documentaries, outside anything filtered through decades of royal press management since her death. That distinction genuinely carries more weight than it might initially appear. Harry lost Diana while still a child, at an age where most of what he actually retains of her is likely partial, coloured by grief, and shaped heavily by how the adults around him chose, or chose not, to discuss her afterward. The Spencers offer a direct thread back to who she was as an actual person, separate from her identity as a public figure. First-hand conversations, real memories, context no official channel could ever fully replicate. Anyone who's lost a parent at a young age understands that connecting with people who genuinely knew them, not as a symbol, not through the flattened "she was wonderful" version everyone repeats, but as a whole, complicated human being, offers something completely different from second-hand storytelling. That's plausibly exactly what's happening here, and it deserves to be taken seriously rather than dismissed as just another photo opportunity. Now, let's move into the part of this story that's arguably far more compelling than the Althorp visits themselves, the childhood dynamic between Harry and William, since much of the conversation around this Spencer connection seems to trace directly back to that heir and spare framework that's followed both brothers their entire lives. This isn't some fresh theory Harry invented for a book tour. It's a structural reality that's been baked into how the monarchy operates for centuries. The heir grows up with the explicit expectation that the crown will eventually belong to them. The spare exists in practical terms as a backup, historically positioned to safeguard the line of succession without the same clearly defined institutional identity. That's not some manufactured grievance dreamed up years later. It's simply how the system has functioned across generations, long before either brother was ever born. And that's precisely where Angela Levin's recollections become worth pausing on, because Levin, having spent significant time around the royal family in her work as a biographer, has spoken about Diana's own worries for Harry specifically. A sense that even while he was still young, Diana seemed concerned about how he'd cope with permanently existing in his older brother's shadow. If that account holds up, it raises a fairly striking question. Was Harry always more aware of his position relative to William than the public ever really understood at the time? Kids tend to pick up on family dynamics far more acutely than adults typically assume, even when they don't yet have the words to explain what they're sensing. If Diana was already noticing that tension while Harry was still a boy, it suggests this narrative didn't just materialize once Harry became an adult sitting across from a television interviewer. It may have been quietly present from a much earlier stage than most coverage tends to admit. That context also sheds light on something meaningful about the Spencer connection, because if a core part of Harry's upbringing involved constantly being defined in relation to William, through comparison, through hierarchy, through simple accident of birth order, then a relationship with the Spencers offers something fundamentally different. It's a family bond that has nothing to do with royal ranking whatsoever. The Spencers aren't sizing Harry up against William. They're not weighing his relevance against succession requirements. They're simply his mother's relatives, people who see him as Diana's son, plainly, without any of the institutional scaffolding that's shaped nearly every other relationship he's had inside the firm. That's potentially an unusually rare thing for him to have access to, and it's worth understanding why that might mean more to him now than it might have appeared to years earlier. Now, let's tackle the framing so much coverage seems to lean on almost automatically. The notion that Harry maintaining ties to Diana's relatives and to Britain more generally somehow signals that he's picking a side, choosing Spencer over Windsor, or hinting at some deeper ongoing rift. And frankly, this is exactly the type of framing that turns a genuinely human moment into yet another manufactured royal power struggle, because it assumes relationships must be all or nothing in a way real families, royal or not, almost never actually are. Think about this in completely everyday terms for a second. Plenty of people stay close with both sides of their extended family after a parent dies. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins from either branch, all coexisting without anyone treating it as some kind of allegiance test. Nobody looks at an average person visiting their late mother's relatives and asks whether that means they're abandoning their father's side of the family. That question would sound ridiculous, applied to virtually anyone else. It only starts to seem plausible once you're talking about the royal family specifically, because royal coverage has spent years conditioning audiences to read almost everything through a lens of conflict, division and feud, so thoroughly that even a completely understandable, emotionally grounded relationship gets forced through that same distorted lens. And that's really the underlying issue worth sitting with. The assumption that Harry must choose between honouring his mother's family and maintaining any kind of ongoing connection to Britain and the institution he stepped away from. Those two things aren't actually incompatible, unless you're deliberately framing them that way to manufacture a story. Harry can preserve a connection to Diana's legacy through the Spencers, stay tied to the country where he grew up, and simultaneously keep building an entirely separate life with Meghan and their kids in the US, all at the same time, without any of it amounting to a rejection of the others. People are complicated. Families are layered and rarely reducible to a single either-or loyalty question. And there's no legitimate reason Harry's circumstances should be treated any differently, simply because there happen to be cameras involved. Maybe, and this is really the heart of what's worth sitting with, none of this is about choosing sides between the Windsors and the Spencers at all. Maybe the truth is simpler and far more human. Maybe it's about Harry reclaiming pieces of his own personal history that still genuinely matter to him, entirely apart from how the institution treats him, apart from any lingering tension with certain relatives, apart from tabloid storylines altogether. A connection to the mother he lost much too soon. A connection to the people who actually knew her rather than the symbol she became. That's not a calculated, political move. That's grief, memory and identity unfolding in a completely relatable human way, one that simply happens to get filtered through royal commentary because that's the lens everything involving Harry seems destined to pass through these days. So where does that leave the actual question underneath all of this? Could Harry's relationship with the Spencers become a meaningful bridge back to Britain in some broader sense? Quite possibly. It's a genuine ongoing tie to both the country and his mother's memory, one that exists entirely independent of his relationship with the working royal family. Is his bond with Diana's relatives likely to grow more significant over time? That feels entirely plausible, particularly as he continues building his own family and presumably wants his children to have some connection to their grandmother's side, much like most parents hope their kids will know both branches of their family tree. And do the childhood dynamics between Harry and William help explain some of the choices Harry's making today? Given everything we've walked through, the structural heir and spare reality, Levin's account of Diana's own concerns, and the deeply human need for relationships free from constant comparison, it's difficult to say those dynamics play no role at all. None of this requires sweeping conclusions about feuds, rifts, or Harry turning his back on anyone. It simply requires actually engaging with the human story, sitting underneath the headline, rather than defaulting to the royal power struggle framing that gets applied to nearly everything involving this family, whether or not it genuinely fits. So, did we expose some sprawling royal secret tonight? Not really. Mostly we just made the case that a man spending time with his mother's relatives doesn't automatically require a political subplot attached to it, which, said aloud, is a strangely bold thing to have to argue about a grieving son staying connected to his late mother's family. But if there's one lesson this channel keeps relearning, it's that even the quietest-seeming royal stories usually have more going on beneath the surface than a three-line headline lets on, and this is a solid example of exactly that. If you appreciated us taking the slower, more thoughtful route instead of the clickbait one, that's basically the entire mission behind Royal Truth Desk. So go ahead, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive. Let us know down in the comments. Do you think this Spencer connection is turning into a genuine bridge for Harry, or do you think we're all reading a little too much into one family visit? Either way, we'd honestly love to hear your take. See you in the next one.